Welcome everyone, and we appreciate taking the time to learn more about Build.One. I know it's a commercial session, but we want to bring value to you in any way. So what we want to do is in that session is want to show you how we move an application to the web. So we take an OpenEdge database and we move it to the web. And for that purpose, we have got about an hour. So we want to spend 10 minutes on an overview of the platform to 15 minutes. We'll show you an exemplary case of one of our customers, kind of their situation and how we move that application to the web. I should have done that quite more times, I guess. That's fine. Try.
I can keep fishing if you want.
No, that's fine. I think we're good. And then we move for the second part to the live demo. So I think the split will be like 15 minutes, and then the rest here. If you have questions, just shoot. Let's not wait to the end. Let's get it out. Let's discuss. And it's fine. We are flexible.
Did you introduce yourself and myself?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well, if you wonder, those two people here in front, it's Ronnie, our Chief Revenue Officer from Build.One. I'm CEO, founder of Build.One. And well, I think that's enough. So we're going to tell you about Build.One and some samples. The idea about Build.One, why we think it's a good idea to use it for modernizing. And then Ronnie will explain a bit about the use cases, and I will then show something live. And as Ronnie already pointed out, just feel free to shoot any question if you want to. So.
Yeah, we don't have to do it like a full presentation the whole time. All right, so we got thinking, how to tell you how to move to the web with Build.One. We got our methods on how to move through these projects, but I think it's best to take one of our customers, and of course, this is disguised as Wayne Enterprise, but our customers are typically like that. They have an OpenEdge-based application. It's an application that they have been building over 10 or 20 years. It's still running a complex Windows GUI application. In this case, they have 500 screens. Many of our customers have over 1,000 screens. Applications become more complex. In this case, we have 300 database tables. We have over 1 million lines of ABL code. It's an individual application. If you take a look at it from the outside, you might classify it as an ERP/CRM application, has customer data in and so on. So let's take that as an example case for one of our customers, and we now want to move this to the web. Wayne Enterprise wants to move to the web. Why is that? Because actually our customers always tell us different reasons, but one cluster of customers tells us, well, they want to scale their application, they want to make it more updatable in a more easy way, because web applications can be updated much more frequently in a much more agile way than having Windows GUI applications. Some of our customers tell us it's about the integration. The business is requesting so many new functionality, so many new services, connections to other external services, and building all of these connections is very difficult, especially if if you don't have a web application. And one of the most frequent things I hear, it's about the entire user experience. Customers or the users of the application demand something that they know from their applications they use at home, a more modern user experience from the web, maybe even from a mobile device. When we have a situation like that, of course there are options, right? You can move to the web with different technologies, and nowadays there are a lot of open source frameworks allowing to do that, right? Angular, React, Vue. You can use all of these open source frameworks to move an application to the web and to design front ends. We don't see that if you have a complex OpenEdge-based application, does it make sense to use a framework like Angular? Because, first of all, those frameworks, they're not designed for business application. So you find that you might have a tree structure, you might find that you have certain widgets or certain functionality, maybe multitasking, multi-windowing, you name it, right? Different kinds of functionality that Angular doesn't support out of the box. So you need to find a library that you can integrate. And you start to integrate the library. And And you have to get to the next functionality. You find the next library. And you start to integrating. And what I've heard from CIOs, they start their journey to the web, and then 6 months go by, and they say, okay, now we're ready. We now have all the libraries and framework in place. We have the development tools in place. Then they start, and then there's so many unknowns. Some things just don't work with each other, and they start again. So they really don't get started. And I believe everyone who has looked into open source tools for the web, there's somewhat of a shallow learning curve, because there are a lot of technologies to learn. It's not just about your front-end framework. No, you also have to learn your CSS, web security, how to deploy a web application. So many things to learn here. So for all of that, I believe taking an open source approach just takes a lot of time. And I sometimes like to say, well, if you're a backend developer, you can either learn all of these technologies and spend the next years doing that, or just learn Build.One. That's in a very easy way how I think about it. Anyway, so let's take Wayne Enterprise through our cycle of development. We have basically a thinking of how we approach such a project where we integrate the database, we create the screens, we integrate the ABL logic, we deploy. And I just want to go through that and how that looks doing Build.One. We'll do that kind of in the theory now and then in the practice right after. So, first of all, Build.One integrates natively with OpenEdge. Sorry, no problem. Get in. That means you continuously use, of course, your OpenEdge database. We also integrate with Data Direct. Data Direct is part of Build.One. That means if you want to connect to other databases, you can do that as well. And we have a series of other connectors if you have other data sources, maybe like a SharePoint or Google Drive, want to add data from that. Altogether, we have around 400 connectors that you can use to add other data sources. Some customers have a screen where they have their OpenEdge database, and then they have integrated a Salesforce database. So for their customers, they can see their current opportunities in a sales tool, just as an example. So for us, it's normal to integrate more than one database or more one tool, even in one screen. So we have integrated now the database. And the cool thing is, since we use the existing database, we can also build your new web application, and you can use your existing application in parallel. And that means that gives you a lot of options in your migration strategy, because you don't have to move the entire application over in a big bang. You can go module by module and maybe have one department with certain functionality already work on in your new web application, and the rest is still working on your legacy application. And it also takes away some of the risk, right? Because there's always your existing application running. Now, when you move to the web, you want to have a modern web experience. And that word usually gets difficult, right? You need to design all the front ends. Well, with Build.One, first of all, you don't start from zero. So what we do is, the first step is we import the existing tables that you have in your database, and we create screens based on that automatically. And we'll show you that in a second. So you will start based on sample screens that we have created. And then you use these screens, and you use our visual designers to drag and drop however you would like the screen to look like. These are really visual designers. They work with drag and drop. There's no HTML knowledge needed. There's no knowledge with any kind of web technologies needed. Everyone can do that and start drag and dropping their screens or their forms. Everything that you build out of the box has certain functionality that we bring along. There's no limitations, and you basically have the same experience that you are known from your desktop. You have multitasking in the browser, multi-windowing in the browser. You can even drag and drop items, and it's all in the web. And having these tools at your hand, we believe the one thing we see that you're twice as fast. I mean, writing HTML code versus having a visual editor, it just makes sense why it's faster. There's some other reasons I get to later on. I think it's very beneficial to work with the business, because how would you usually design a screen? Well, you create some Figma designs maybe, You create some mock-ups, you show it to the business. Business tells you, no, button more over to the right. You go back, you move it to the right, you show it. And at some point, the user says, yeah, that's fine. And you start in the front end, and you start developing it. And then it's there, and the customer might say, nah, we don't want it like that. If you have a visual designer, you design something together with the business owner. Maybe even the business owner is drag and dropping something, and that's the application. It's not a mock-up, that's the actual application. And we believe that by doing that and by creating these screens in a very efficient way, the developers can actually focus on the code and actually focus on the business logic. Now, speaking of the business logic, how do we work? How do we integrate business logic in our web applications and your existing application? Well, all of our applications run in the web. So in the browser, you can access the entire application in the browser. We already talked about our data hub, which is Progress Data Direct, and your existing OpenEdge database. How do we integrate logic now? Well, first of all, we do have an own backend, which is based on OpenEdge. We integrate with your Progress OpenEdge backend, so you can continue writing ABL code in your web application, for your web application. We also have an automation hub that enables you to create little automations. Let's say you have a document for a customer and you want to send that, it's done. You can send that via email, you can send an email, a Slack message to your team, you can integrate other services, and all of these automation flows are integrated with a low-code, no-code designer that we have integrated, and we'll show you that, how that looks like. You have also the possibilities to add rules to your backend and to your front end, actually, using Progress Corticon. So we natively integrate with Corticon in the backend and the front end. We have a web GUI for that to control. Or you can also add, if you like, TypeScript logic in the backend and in the front end. So these are the possibilities on how you add logic to your application. So what you've done by now, you have integrated your OpenEdge database, you've created some screens using visual designers, you continuously using your ABL logic that you've developed over the last years, and if you like to add something on top, you can use the other tools like automation workflows or rules engines. Basically, you now have developed maybe one module of your application, and you can now deploy that application also with Build.One. Build.One has all the tools, all the CI/CD you need to manage and deploy a web application. So you can develop, like I said, module by module, deploy your application with just a click of a button. There's no need for you to be experts on DevOps or web security. Build.One will take care of that. And every application that you build is automatically containerized with Docker, and you can deploy it in the cloud, on-premise, or in a private cloud. And that means you can build the application without any web knowledge, deploy it on-premise without any DevOps knowledge, and make it available via the web. So what does that mean for Wayne Enterprise now? So let's say Wayne Enterprise goes through that cycle. And let's say they decided for Build.One instead of open source. If we compare the workload you have, if you use Angular or Build.One, we see that you are a little bit over twice as fast in the setup time because you don't need to integrate the framework. Build.One is completely integrated. All the tools are already there. By the way, it's open. It's an open platform. So if you want to add other tools, feel free. I mean, we don't. This is not a closed development platform. It's an open development platform. We integrated things that we find useful. If you want to add stuff, great. So by having everything already integrated, by having everything already containerized, we see that you are at about twice as fast. Within the development, we see also about a speed increase about twice because you use the visual designers for the screens. That's one reason. But there's also a concept within Build.One where we inherit all the objects that we have. If you design a form, let's say for customer data. You design it once, and then you reuse it. All the places you need it. You don't design, you design it 20 times. You design it once. Also, when you change it once, it's changed everywhere else. So we have these concepts of inheritance of objects that make it far more efficient to develop. You can create templates and reuse them. You don't need to do all the things twice. You set up your application, you developed it, you deployed it, now you need to maintain it. With maintenance cost, we see that the maintenance cost is less than half of a Build.One application compared to an open source stack. Why is that? Well, if any of you has ever twinkled around with Angular maybe for a while and maybe have one or two applications running, they run great until you have to update the version again, or until you have to update or include another technology. If you build an application with Build.One, we always update the platform, and that keeps the application always up to date. We have a technology that enables us to understand the application, store the application, and then update the platform every 2 weeks and always stay updated, always stay up to date. So maybe 12 months time, you want your application to run on Apple's VR glasses. Well, maybe we feel like it, and we tinkle around and we add to our platform VR glasses, and you can just take a look at that. Take a look at the application in a virtual world. This is without you adding any technology, because we do that, and you don't have to take care of that front end anymore. Now, within the last 10 minutes, I have just spoken, or mainly spoken, about the front end. There's so much more. So the platform has a series of tools that help you to develop applications, to add functionality to the application, and make it future-proof. And with Build.One, you can easily manage that application without having experts in every field. And you can continue using your ABL code. We have also a series of pre-developed modules. That means for some of the most, or for the task we always see, we bring ready-to-go modules. Just an example, there's a module for document generation. Actually, 90% of our customers use that, but because in every kind of process, at some point you need to create a document. You need to send an invoice, you need to send need to send a contract. So we have a document generation tool that allows you to, based on your database and based on a standard Word template that your business can create themselves, can create letters or invoices and documents. All right, I think this gives a first overview of what Build.One is, and I guess the best thing now is to just go into it, right? And just do what I've shown you now on the platform.
Yeah.
Any questions to this point already?
Sorry,
That's fine.
You're missing the best part.
No, that's good. Any questions to this point? No? All right, let's take a look at some applications.
Yeah, so ideas, we show you a few real-world applications that have been built with Build.One, and then we jump into the development environment and see how that works, have a look at the low-code part, but then also look at the what we call pro-code part, where you, in the web, can implement business logic, can write ABL in the browser, and then bring it together with the low-code part. So this is a sample application here. I like to show that because it's a very, very complex one. And you can see this as an example of what you can do with Build.One. And the main idea of Build.One when we developed it was there was always a saying, there was one should be able to develop the next SAP with this. With low code, with pro code, all in the cloud, in the web. And this example, or this application shows how complex screens can be. It's a healthcare management system, so it's unfortunately only available in German. And it's when you cannot work anymore, when you have to retire, when you're seriously injured, that is all maintained in this application. So it handles patients, injured persons, hospitals, doctors, insurance companies, handles invoicing and all that kind of stuff. So let's start with this dashboard where you see all your appointments. We also have an integration with Exchange. So if I would have any appointments, I would see them here. Here I see all cases that are relevant for me. Here with that test data, I don't have any. But here on the left, I can access my main menu. And I can go to injured persons here. And then I search for something. And then you see the UI is fully responsive. You can adjust it any way you like. Also, when you make it larger or smaller, you see that it adjusts. So it will also work fine on an iPad. The screen resolution here for that Beamer is very, very low. So that's why we had to zoom out a little bit here to make this work. So it looks it does not look as nice as normally, but I think you get the idea. So here I'm searching for an injured person, and now if I found one, I click on this and I open the injured person here. A new screen is opened, and you can already see that this is a quite complex screen. I think here for an injured person, all the data, I would guess it's several thousand fields. So, and typically when OpenEdge customers want to go to the web, the first approach, the standard approach, is some kind of app. And usually they very soon realize it doesn't work. That was also the case with this customer here. They realized they had a very nice concept, a very nice UI, but it was a typical app. And you are not able to fit all this into a simple app. If you look at this, there are lots of pages here. So if you go to page 2, you see a lot of documents regarding to this. 3 documents here. If I click on it, I see the details of that document. Then you see a lot of more. They are all packed. Each tab has additional data. And then on the page 1 alone, I have, I think, 12 or 14 sub-pages here, with additional data, like all the addresses that are related to this, the addresses of the doctor, of the employer, and all that kind of stuff. And then if I click on this, I see the details again. So you see very complex. And then typically they come from existing Windows GUI applications where you can have multiple windows, and then you have some kind of multi-windowing, multitasking. And then if you switch to an app, if you have worked with other apps, you know it, you have something open, a customer, you want to switch to something else, and then you either save or you lose your data. Now here, a typical use case would be, I'm working with this injured person, I'm checking something, maybe I'm editing this person, correcting some address data, and then I get a phone call, and Olga is on the phone and asking, did you already get the stuff from my doctor? So while working here, even while I'm editing, I just go back to my main menu. I go to my inbox here, and I search in my inbox, search for Olga, and give me a second.
You have a filter in there.
Oh, that was the wrong key. Sorry for that. That was this locked screen. I'm sorry. So we're back there. Yeah, this is my inbox, and obviously in that system I don't have a lot of stuff. So let me search for all data, and then search for Olga again. And then we see the answer from Dr. Hegel. You see a nice looking doctor here. And if that came in via an email, you see the attachments right here in the UI. If it came in as a letter, it will get scanned. So this application is connected to the document management system. And then you see here, you can look at that document and see that data. And you can even work with the document. You can add some notes here, or you could say, yeah, Olga tells me the address is no longer correct, so I'll work with that, and then I forward it to a colleague here, and work like that. And while doing that, I can always go back to my currently open record and continue working here. Or I would go there and say, okay, open the patient data for that patient or for the doctor. And then I open that in parallel. Again, I can change that. I switch between the two. And you see, this is a totally different kind of user experience than you have from a typical app. And what we actually did here is we implemented basically something like a whole Windows OS or Mac OS inside the browser. And it becomes more obvious if I do something like this. Normally that we try to hide that, so everything is maximized like you just saw. But for explaining it here, I'll do it like this, and then you see this is really like a whole Mac OS or Windows OS in the browser. You have windows, you can minimize and maximize them, you can arrange them, you have your taskbar where you switch between them, and then you can always, as mentioned, just maximize it again. And that shows you can really implement any kind of UX, any kind of complexity with Build.One. So with that shown, let me switch to another application. This is a application more ERP-like, where you can create, for example, proposals, invoices, other stuff. We'll go to that and go to sales proposals. I see a list of proposals here. If I select one, I see the details here. And I can open that proposal here. Again, if I click on that, it opens the proposal. Similar, I have some kind of toolbar or ribbon here. In this case, as this application is targeted at very complex use cases, you can have your proposal subdivided into different parts, the functional solution, services, things like that. And then you can use items from the ERP, you can add text. And if I click on one of the offer lines, I see the details on the right here. And again, quite complex screens. I can subdivide this detail screen further by, for example, having some images. Let me see if we see some image here. There we see also some images. And I can have text, I can have the item details from the ERP. In this case, this is connected to a Microsoft Navision. And then you'll see it's also the whole proposal maintenance screen is divided into multiple tabs. So I can edit a text here in different languages, I think. Let's switch to English. Yeah, then you have an English text. So multilingual is built into the platform for the UI as well as for the data. You get that out of the box. And you see we have this control here is really a complex one. It supports everything basically that Word supports. You can add images to your text and captions and numbered lists and tables and placeholders and stuff like that. And then if I go to files, so I can transfer my proposal into a file, a Word or a PDF. And then I can also say, send that to the customer. So I can send that document as an attachment to an email, add a subject. What I can also do, it's a bit larger, I can say, this is an important proposal. Now if I select important, you see that the screen changes. Do again, I say important, and now a new part appears in the screen where I can add a Slack message and a subject. So here I could say, from Puck, very important proposal sent out. And I can say send message. And if I open Slack here, then you will see this is, there it is, there we go. So this is our Slack channel. And you see it sent a message through Slack, hi from Puck, and very important proposal sent out. And so you see this application is really, it's integrated with Exchange, with Slack, with Teams, and a lot of other other applications. And it also makes use of the Build.One UX. So I can, for example, go back. I search for another proposal. Maybe I sent out a very similar proposal half a year ago. I search for that. I open that one. Let's open this, for example. So now I have two proposals open. Well, they look very similar. You see, we're not very creative in our sample data here. But just like in the other healthcare application, you see it's making use of different, being able to open multiple records at the same time. And what I can also do is I can say, I drag and drop this screen over the other, and then it will be arranged side by side. And now what I could do is I could select parts of this proposal, multi-select 3, and then I can just drag and drop into the other proposal. I will not do that here because I don't want to screw up the demo data from Ronnie. Also, he would say I already did it, but yeah, at least I don't want to screw it any further. So but you see how you can work here, drag and drop from the other proposal, then close that proposal, maximize this one, continue working. So this is just the same experience that you are used to if you're working with a desktop application. And that was the goal of Build.One, implementing in a web UI, implementing complex business applications in a way that you normally could only do in a native desktop application. And there's more to this. We also support multi-monitor setup, where you could have a second screen here and move parts of this application to the other screen, and they communicate with each other. So you click on a grid here, and you see the details updated on the other screen. So all that kind of stuff we have added here. Keyboard handling, so that's also very important. Often if you migrate applications, you come up with a nice, sexy new app, but the users say, yeah, but I'm so fast in the old one. I do everything with the keyboard, and they don't really appreciate it looking nice. They just realize it takes now 3 times longer than before. So we really invested heavily into keyboard support and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the proposal application. With that, I would switch to looking at how you build stuff like that. Unless there are any questions so far about those applications or the UX part. No? Then let's move on. So here I'm logged into the Build.One portal. As Ronnie already pointed out, Build.One is really an end-to-end platform. We cover everything from UI, UX, with the whole development process, versioning, deployment, containerization, all that kind of stuff. Not all of that we developed from scratch by ourselves. So we use Git for versioning, and then we have integrations with GitHub, with Bitbucket, with integrations with Jira as an issue tracker. It doesn't make sense for us to compete with Git or with Jira or whatever, so we integrate there. And the Build.One portal is our UI above all those different tools and third-party products that we integrate with. So you can work with Jira. I could go to Jira, for example, look at some issues, and you would see exactly the same like here. So this is using our Jira connector as a data source. These are Jira projects. Then I see the sprints, I see issues, and here I see branches if there are any. So if I would go to our Jira, I would see exactly the same data. So you could go to Jira, use that, and the goal of this is not to replace Jira or create a new UI for it. It's just to have the most important stuff that you do daily in the Build.One platform so that you don't have to context switch all the time. Similar here, we are connected to Bitbucket. In fact, I am logged in here with my real user. So this is our data that you see here, Build.One. This portal here has been developed with Build.One. That's normal Build.One application. In fact, the whole Build.One platform is a Build.One app. So we develop Build.One with Build.One. It sounds a bit strange, but it's really, really powerful. So the designer, the visual designer that you're going to see, has been developed with the designer. So everything I show you here, that's exactly how our developers work when they develop the platform. So here I'm connected to our Bitbucket instance. Let me filter here for our training app. Now, the idea of Build.One is that you work completely in the browser. Doesn't necessarily mean you are in the cloud, but it's always in a web browser. So you can install everything on your servers, on your machine, but you will work in the browser. So that means you don't have to install anything. And when you develop, we use what we call development workspaces. That is basically a machine that you access through the browser and where you then can develop in the browser. So the idea is, instead of having a PC with all your stuff on it, your OpenEdge, your developer studio, whatever, and then changing your local installation when you work on this version of your application, or when you work on a different task, or a customer reports an issue, you need to set up all your environment to that version. Maybe it's a different database version, different controls. So it takes quite some setup time to make your environment fit the one that you need to work on. And then you often get that works on my machine or does not work. Build.One approach is different. We say you just create a development environment for that version, or for that task, or for that branch, or for that commit, or for that pull request, whatever. So here I see the repositories in Bitbucket. Here is the branches. And now I could select any branch and I say, please launch a local workspace for this. I can give it a name. Let's just use dev here. I can choose from the domains. We have test and dev domains and demo domains. I can say to which machine I want to deploy it, or where I want to run it. I could use any of the machines where Build.One is installed. And then I say, I have some advanced options here that we can ignore for now. And I say, okay, fire up a workspace there. So it built a URL based on what I selected. And now I'm in our low-code environment. So this is exactly the version of the source code. Everything, it reads the stuff from the Git repository, sets it up. It's pre-built as a container image, so it's very fast because technically it's only firing up containers. And here, if this would be my first task working here, I've maybe already connected the database, and then it's my first task. As Ronnie mentioned, I could say I want to start with the quick builder, and a quick builder can generate screens and objects, forms, grids, data access objects for me. So I would select the source. I would say it's a database. It will show me all my databases. So that's, for example, 2 databases here connected. And then I can select from the tables. Of course, I can filter here. And I can add those tables here. I can add some options. And then the next step would be, I say I want to generate screens. So, and I would say, what type of screens do you want to generate? And an important thing here is really that the idea of Build.One is that an ABL developer becomes a full stack developer again. As Ronnie showed, either you learn all this or you learn Build.One. And I think that's where we all come from. I think the ABL is really the mother of all low-code tooling. Yeah? You would write the UI, you would write your business logic, data access, all in one language. That's not possible anymore today. There's no ABL in the browser. There's also no Java in the browser. That's not only a problem of OpenEdge developers, it's also a problem of other developers. We make this possible again, but the idea is we bring together all the different roles that you need nowadays for a really state-of-the-art business application. So if you look at older OpenEdge applications, sometimes you can tell that it was all done by a developer when you look at the UI and the screens. So with Build.One, the idea is it's possible that a UX professional has defined how the different types of screens should look. So for example, you say, I want to have search screens, I want to have maintenance screens, and so on. Select that, then I get my options, and then I can select here from templates. So I have a search screen, and now I see all the different templates that have been prepared for search. So there's a simple search screen, has only a grid. There's a complex search screen with a grid, a preview form, and a tab page. So I can say, okay, I want to use this, and then I can select a lot of other options. I can say I want to generate forms, grids, autocomplete stuff, so like a form, a data source. Again, you get all the options for it, and so on. Then you can assign it to modules. And at the end, if you want to, you can also select AI optimizations, where we then use OpenAI or other to auto-guess the optimal column orders and other stuff. Yeah. Due to the time restrictions, I'm not going to run that, but the result is then screens like this. This, for example, is a typical search screen. Again, Build.One is developed with Build.One. So this is also done exactly the same way like I showed you. I could then open the generated screens in the screen designer, but as we also want to show you the whole pro code stuff, I will do that in one environment in the pro code part. So going back to the portal, what you've seen is I created a local workspace, which is only the whole low-code, no-code tooling. But as Ronnie mentioned, business people could use the designer to do that via drag and drop. Would not necessarily need a developer to create your screens. But then at some time, if you really want to build an ERP or something, then you will also need to have pro code. So prepared something here. Let's search for Mike. There's a Mike pro code sample branch. And I can say launched a pro code workspace. And I already did that. Takes about 5-6 minutes to start up a fresh new workspace. That is similar to like setting up a whole new machine. So that workspace then has Progress in it, PassOE in it, database in it, Build.One in it, your database, your code, your application, everything that you normally would have on your local machine. And it looks like this if you start it up. It's still running in the browser. And then here, for example, we have some customer logic where we have an after fetch event. Whenever customer data is read from the database, it's read into a temp table. And here we go through the temp table for each customer. We also get a code completion preview. That's the ABL plugin from Riverside that we're using here. And then we have here some logic that says for each customer that I have read, go through the order table, then increase the counter for the orders, and then assign to the comments field the customer has orders and so on. That's your typical ABL that you write. But in the pro code development workspaces, you also have the no code part. Yeah? So that's of course also there. So even as a developer, I want to use some low code tooling sometimes. So here, for example, I'm in the screens part of our Build.One tooling. I search for all the customer related screens, and there is a customer screen. I'm opening that, and then what I see is the Build.One screen designer here. So that's how you design screens. You see here a tree with all the elements of this screen. It's a very simple one. It has a data source. That's the customer table and the OpenEdge database. It has a grid and a form. Here I see the visual representation. So that's just the two elements above each other. And then I have here are some attributes. For example, I could change the layout. Well, let's quickly launch that screen. You can just click a button. It will launch the screen right away here. So see how that works. You can filter, of course. It's all built in. If you select a record, it will show the details here. Now let's enhance that screen a bit. Let's say I want to add something, maybe another form or maybe some more cool stuff like Google Maps. Then I would say I choose a different layout. I want to have 3 panels and want to have them arranged like this. I'll select this. Now I have a new empty panel. And now, and normally this works better, but if it's in that small resolution and only one screen, it's a bit cumbersome. Normally you would work with 2 screens here. So here I browse all the available objects or building blocks that I have. So if I search for something with map, I find a simple map. I drag and drop it here, save it, launch my screen again, and I have a new panel here with a map. I can change the size. I can also say, as a user, I don't want this, get rid of it. Yeah, but as a developer, I now say this is 3 panels and I have a map. If I click here, I don't see the map changing. So I could add some code here on click of the grid, do some geocoding, update the map, or I go back to my designer and I go from the design part to the flow part. Here you now see all the elements of the screen and not the visual part. Here you see how they relate to each other. So we have one data source, we have a display link, a data link to the grid, and we see the map is not really integrated at all. So I would go here and I say I create a smart link from the data source to the map. So as soon as you have a valid element, it becomes green and snaps. I select the correct type of link, save this. Now the only thing I need to do is I go to the, go to the map here. Let me get rid of this so that we have a bit more space for that. And now I need to tell the map, okay, from the data source, which field should you use for geocoding? This is the sports DB. Let's use city and street. And what should you display in the map? As a legend, let's use the name field. And then we save it and launch it again. And now we see it automatically updates to the selected record here. If I select a record that has an address, you see it changes. And that's how you work with the no-code part. And that no-code part is fully integrated with the pro-code part. So if I quickly launch that screen again, if we look at, make this a bit wider, if we look at the column, the comment column, where is it? There it is. I can, by the way, also arrange that. Just drag and drop it to the left, make it a bit wider. And you see here, customer has 19 orders, 6 shipped, and so on. And I go back to my logic again. I change the code here and say, like hello puck. I save this. Hello puck. Save it. And when you edit TypeScript, JavaScript, ABL, Build.One will recognize what it is and will do the correct thing. So in this case, we will do a compile, save our code. If it's TypeScript, we will do a build. You don't have to care about that. What you see here technically is Visual Studio Code. We did not redevelop the wheel. We did not implement our own IDE. This is Visual Studio Code, but we have enhanced it. So for example, in Visual Studio Code, you can say Build.One trim, and this will trim the Progress Application Server to make sure that it uses the latest version of my code. And once I've changed the code, trimmed the PassOE, once I reload, you see it takes a bit longer now because it's reloading the R code, but now you see your changes in effect immediately. So, sorry. That shows you how that's all integrated into one environment. And there's one more thing that I wanted to show you. Let me go back to that low-code part that we started. You saw that we had that Slack integration in the other application. Would like to show you how we did that. So That's the Build.One automation hub, as we call it. Some background: in the past we were using Sonic ESP for all that, but as Progress unfortunately decided to sell that, we needed a replacement, and we decided we develop something on our own this time. So you can think about the Build.One automation flow like the Sonic ESP. So here we have that automation workflow for sending an email and for Slack. So here you build your workflows in Build.One, your automation workflows as we call them. So here you see the Slack part, and if I double click and I go there, this is the message that you saw in Slack. And you have an editor here. You can your data that you connect, your fields or whatever, you can then drag and drop them here, and then you add an expression, and here you see a preview of this. So this is how you build all that stuff. And then you can run that directly from here. You can run it from your screens. You can run it from the backend. And you can easily add other stuff. So if you say, I'm not using Slack, I'm using Teams, for example, you search here, we support Telegram, Microsoft Teams. If you go there, these are all the tasks we support from Microsoft Teams. So there is a create a message in a channel. You would drop that here, select your credentials and stuff like that, and then you just you can do both, send it in Teams and in Slack, or only in Teams. So you can easily change that. And we have more than 400 connectors, as Ronnie already pointed out. And as mentioned, Build.One is developed with Build.One. So when you saw the quick builder, where we selected the AI optimizations, so that is also part of the product. So if you want to integrate OpenAI, ChatGPT, it's as simple. You drag and drop that here, create a chat, create an image, things like that, and then just edit here and add your stuff here. Yeah, so you see that's the idea of Build.One. No code, low code, because it often makes sense. It helps speeding up things. It helps empower people. But at the same time, no compromises for professional developers. So really have all the pro code that you have today. So you can implement any kind of code that you do today, but you can also make use of all the no code, low code functionality here. So that's the idea of Build.One.
All right. Since we only got 5 minutes left, we have shown you the import of screens, the designer of screens, and the automation hub. There's really a lot more to explore here. There are different designers for different things like menus, function, forms, grids. There are different low-code tools to add logic. But I think you've seen the most important part of Build.One, and also from the portal, then again you can deploy that application. And we support, like Mike has mentioned, we integrate with your regular development workflow with Jira or Bitbucket. So if there are any questions, you can shoot right now, but we will also be around. And when you leave, if you like, on the table we got 2 white papers there. One is describing the method, how we move an application to the web, describing that in detail, and some customer references, in which cases we have done that. I think this white paper, for instance, shows how we have moved the Swiss government and their healthcare system to the web, which was based on an OpenEdge application. And the blue white paper shows another custom example in which we had 3 architects sitting in a room and calculating the entire project with Angular and with Build.One, and that's how we got to the numbers. So if you want to go more into the detail why we claim these, or why we have these claims, you can find that out there. There's also a business card. If you want to stay in touch, you can also grab one. Any case, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for spending an hour with us. I hope that was enlightening, and have a great rest of the day, and then a good trip home and a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.